What up, gamers? I'm Jason, and today on Kickstarter Excess or Value, we've got our regular host, -1, who is a little bit under the weather, but don't worry, his better and more beautiful half is here. Yeah, we got the good part, so don't worry about that. And have the pleasure of also having a special guest, the designer of Earth Under Siege Flashpoint. We've got Steve Kozlowski who's going to join us, and in this episode, we're going to be talking about should you late pledge the game that I just mentioned. It's a little bit of a mouthful. I'm not going to say it again. I do love the name, by the way. So I'm going to let him actually take it away and introduce himself and tell all our reviewers a little bit about yourself, about the game. And once again, just want to say thank you for coming on the show to have this conversation with us.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate you guys taking the time to do this. I became aware of your channel when you guys did a review of my Kickstarter, and I thought you guys did a good job of really breaking everything down and being very fair about everything. And that's when I kind of reached out to you guys, and we just started talking. So yeah, I'm happy to talk to you guys. So I am a first-time creator. Founded Dark Horizon Games back in 2020, before everything got totally crazy in the very beginning of 2020 when things were just starting to get crazy. But I've been working on this game for 3.5 years. And that's because I was working, another full-time job. So I was basically doing 2 full-time jobs for the last 3.5 years. And it was a lot of work. The Kickstarter finally arrived, and it turned out fairly well. We had a few bumps along the way, but overall, we're pretty happy.
Well, that's really interesting what you said about the bumps, because one of the main reasons why we're doing this video is you brought up just sort of like our analysis was based on, the monetary unlock stretch goals, which you then switched to daily unlock stretch goals, which happened, I think, the day after we recorded the video, which would have completely changed the conversation, which really got us talking and gave us the opportunity to do this video. So it's going to be pretty cool. Really interested to hear all about that as well.
Yep. For sure.
So then we'll let our regular hosts just remind you where you can find them and what they're all about. And then we'll start talking about the game.
All right. So I'll try to do this. Rob usually does it, but I'm Anna Marie from the Meeple Dungeon. And we're out here in BC, and you can find us on Twitter at Meeple Dungeon, and our podcast, The Meeple Dungeon, on all the major podcasting sites.
And hey, folks, it's Ryan here from Mr. Rao's Gaming Rants and Reviews, and you can go and check out my YouTube channel. Just search up Mr. Rao Gaming, MISTARAU Gaming. And yeah, I got reviews, playthroughs, and those good old face-shaking rants that I just love to do.
All right, so we will let the Pledge Master Ryan pop up the late pledge page for Earth Under Siege Flashpoint. So we got a nice backdrop here, and we'll let Steve just tell us a little bit about the game. We do have some questions. This is not going to be just a full freeform discussion, but let's get some background about where the idea for Earth Under Siege came from, and basically, his goal of designing this stealth dungeon crawl, and how it's different than everything else in the space.
Yeah. So as far as where the idea came from, it's a little bit tricky, a little bit complicated. For one thing, the idea was just kind of there. It just was in my head one day. I wasn't trying to think of a game or trying to think of specifically this type of game. It was just the idea came to me, and I don't really know where it came from. It was just there. And I just started kind of thinking about it, and that'd be kind of neat if there was a game that did something like this. And I had always wanted to do something like this on my own. Are any of you familiar with the old company FASA that made BattleTech and Shadowrun?
Yes.
They're still a FASA around, but they're not the original FASA. I did a lot of freelance work for them when they were the original FASA. They actually had a miniatures game called Vor the Maelstrom, and I did a bunch of work for that, freelance writing and rule design, and I loved doing it. It was a lot of fun, and I always kind of wanted to do my own thing, from doing that. And so I had bounced around many ideas over the years, but nothing ever really stuck. It was never the right time or anything like that. And then this idea, like I said, it just kind of was just there one day. I just thought about it would be cool to have like a covert ops based stealth game. And I said, there's really nothing like that out there. And I said, it would be really cool if it was done right. And when I thought of the idea, there really wasn't any stealth games out there. I guess the only one that was out there was V Commandos, and I hadn't even heard of that game at the time. And then once I started creating it, more games started to come out. Now, like I heard about Reichbusters and Assassin's Creed, and I was like, whoa, it's like all of a sudden we went from no stealth games to a bunch of stealth games. But really, that's where it came down to. I just thought I just love like covert op missions in movies and TV, and I just thought it'd be really cool to have a game that represented that.
Well, we do not have one that's in the sci-fi space, and Assassin's Creed is actually just an iteration on V Commandos with the Assassin's Creed theme applied to it because it's the same studio. So you're getting a lot of similarities, but I'd also say if having played the game and talking to a friend of mine that's gone a little further than me in the game, it has a couple of deficiencies with its early game design that kind of evens out later on, but can be a little frustrating.
Sure.
So I'm eager to learn more about what's different with like your version of stealth compared to say like V Commandos and other similar stealth games. Well, not necessarily similar, but that genre of game.
Sure. The only one that I've played is Reichbusters. I've never played Assassin's Creed. I've never played V Commandos. I have looked into them for the sake of research, but I have never actually played them. I would say that what makes us different with the stealth aspect specifically is that again, without having played, I can tell you what's different from Reichbusters, which is for instance, like if you played Reichbusters, any of you?
I have not.
No, it was. It came out when I was in my mad at Mythic phase because I backed both Joan of Arc and Solomon Kane.
I gotcha. Yeah, gotcha. In Reichbusters, it's a stealth game, but it's not really a stealth game. You're not making stealth checks. There's a noise mechanic, but I didn't like the noise mechanic in Reichbusters. I felt it was very clunky. Our noise system, I feel, is actually pretty cool. There's a noise value associated with any noise you make. And when you make that noise, you count a number of zones away from where the noise originated equal to the noise value. And if there are any blips in that radius, they flip over to their patrol side and they come looking for you. So now you've turned these guards into patrols. And that's very bad in this game because patrols never go away. When you kill a green blip, it's just a guard blip, it just goes off the board. It's just removed. When you kill a patrol, the patrol goes back into the spawn pool. And it's just going to come back at the end of the round. So the more patrols you make, the more trouble you're making for yourself down the road because they're just going to keep coming back and keep coming back. So I really like that aspect of our noise mechanic because it really makes you very careful to not make noise. You're very selective of when you do it.
That actually kind of ties in with one of the questions that I had. Was that how you came up with the mechanism of the escalation track, because that's so neat how it's just it ramps up and ramps up and ramps up, and it's just I feel like that will be just like a stressor in the game, like oh my gosh, like you can just because it's visual, right? You can see it going up and see that okay, this is about to get real here real quick.
Yeah. And just to fill people in for exactly how that works, as you move around the map and you engage in combat or sabotage, you leave behind these investigate tokens. And that is what the patrols move towards. They move towards the nearest investigate token. And when they reach one of those, that token goes up to the escalation track. And that slowly, like she was saying, builds the tension in the game as the enemy becomes more and more aware of you. There are some things that trigger on that track as you add tokens, such as adding new patrols, and then eventually triggering the alarm. So you feel the game kind of squeezing in around you as you're playing, and you're feeling that pressure, like we got to keep going. We got to get to the objective. We got to complete this thing before the alarm goes off, because the alarm going off is bad in this game. It's very difficult. I mean, it's not impossible, but the game becomes very hard, and there's no more stealth involved at that point. It's just a running gun battle of you trying to get to the objective, finish it, and get off the board before you just get overrun.
See, having played Assassin's Creed, one of the things that I do like about just how you've changed up stealth is that constant progression towards it, or that decision to be like, well, you know what, maybe we're going to get caught by these guys, but they're not that strong. So then going back in the spawn pool is not necessarily a bad thing if we can advance. With Assassin's Creed, it could be really early in the mission and you get a bad stealth check, and then you're just revealed and you're out there. And unlike the video game where you could just basically, kind of run, go back like a couple of frames and you're stealth, you can retry. In the board game, you have to have one of two cards, at least where we're at in the game, that would let you sort of reset that. Otherwise, prepare to get overrun. So I like the fact that this is more strategic and focused on, making those tough choices, whereas another one's like, I got a bad die roll. It's the first turn of the game. We're revealed. Do I want to keep playing?
Right. Now, yeah. So, and that's interesting that you talk about that because, for instance, some of the decision points that get made is like, we got a patrol coming. Do we let this patrol come and gobble up all of these, investigate tokens and fill up the track, or do we ambush it, knowing it's going to respawn possibly in a location that's not good for us, but it's going to stop it from taking those tokens. So that is the kind of decisions you make, trying to decide when and where to engage enemies and when to just try to sneak past them. But as far as like the die rolling aspect goes, there are stealth checks, and like there are times where you have to sneak past a hallway or past a camera, and you will be making stealth checks to get past that. And if you fail that check, what happens is any enemies that can draw a line of sight to you, they become aware. Okay. And that's bad because if the enemy phase begins with an aware enemy, they automatically trigger the alarm. So if an enemy becomes aware of you, you need to kill them or stun them. Otherwise that alarm is getting triggered and things are going to get very difficult. But there are lots of ways to mitigate all that. It's not just come down to just a die roll. Well, let's just see what happens. I mean, there's a lot of ways for you to mitigate the dice rolls and to plan strategically where and when to make critical checks.
It's that's actually one of maybe it's for me, I guess one of the most blatantly obvious stealthy aspects, but I think one of the coolest things about this game, it hasn't been in any game that I've played, in any type of dungeon crawl or anything like that. Every game that I've played, when you're in line of sight of an enemy, they can see you. Yep. And then it's just a matter of if they have range or not. Mm-hmm. I've never played a game where you're actually in line of sight of an enemy and they can't see you unless you make noise like that. And I thought that was so cool and such a neat way around like stealth, right? Like that is another stealth aspect. They can't see you because you're being quiet and you're evading them.
And you're moving, in the shadows and the cover. You got a picture very cinematic. You got guards standing around. They're kind of paying attention. They're kind of not. And you're moving from place to place, trying to stay in the shadows, backing up against the wall. That kind of stuff is what that represents. That's what you have to make stealth checks to maintain that stealth. And I made sure that when we had the art done on the tiles, that I told the artist, make sure there's lots of protrusions and objects and stuff that people could be realistically hiding behind, so that it's realistic to say that they can't see us because you're backed up against this corner, you're hiding from them. It seemed realistic.
That's awesome. I love that. Was that always like in the forefront? That just I love that aspect of being in line of sight and they can't see you. Was that just always kind of there? Like,
yeah, that was always from the beginning is just being able to sneak past guards and sometimes even being able to sneak right into their zone. Like that's something that an assassin will do sometimes, is they'll sneak right into an enemy zone and get right on top of them before they know he's there, and then, take care of business.
Cool. I like that.
Mm-hmm. And if this was in 80s movies, all the guards would be standing around smoking for some reason.
Right.
And they would all be like throwing their cigarette down and then they'd get them killed.
Right, exactly.
All right. I think that covers enough about the the game, the gameplay, the stealth aspect. Is there anything that you wanted to add on that note, Steve, before we move on to get into some of the questions that we had just about, the Kickstarter and the late pledge process and all of that?
Yeah, the last thing I just want to add that you had kind of some of the stuff we talked about previously is, what are some of the things that I'm really, I like about the game that I'm proud about. And one of those is the choose your own strategy approach to this game. I didn't want to make your typical dungeon crawler where it's very obvious what you do. You go to this room, you kill these guys, take their stuff, and then you get to the objective or the boss and you fight them, and then that's it. It's very obvious. There's not a lot of decision points as far as how you go about it. It's like you're on a train track. It's very obvious what to do. Whereas in this game, I wanted to make it you choose your strategy. So, you lay out the board, you read the objectives, and then you get to decide how to complete that mission. There is no clear, one path to take. And there's a ton of options that you can take advantage of if you want to, but you don't have to. And there are three, basic strategy approaches that you can take for any given mission. You can take the Black Op approach, which focuses heavily on the stealth. You can take Breach and Clear, which focuses heavily on combat, or you can take Espionage, which focuses on sabotage. And each of those choices comes with a strategy card, which gives unique abilities to the team. And it also gives gear cards that you could distribute amongst the team that focus on that strategy. So for instance, if you chose Black Op, you would cut the power from outside the building, which puts 2 investigate tokens on the escalation track at the beginning of the game because they know something's up. The power's out. What's going on here? But you have what's called concealment, which makes your stealth checks much easier to do. And you also have a bunch of gear that helps you with stealth checks and stuff like that. So I really like that it's a choose your strategy. Choose how you want to complete the mission. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. The mission is not going to tell you how to do it. We're just going to lay it all out there and we're going to let you decide how you want to do it.
I love the idea of that. Awesome. Yeah. All right, now this is a question that just came to me right now, and I think it's one that Ryan is probably going to be the most interested to hear about because as you saw him scrolling through Kickstarter, and there's a rant coming about Kickstarter versus GameFound. So just out of curiosity, why Kickstarter? Why not one of the other crowdfunding platforms?
Well, when I was first getting started on this, GameFound was not taking first-time creators. You had to be an established creator to even get on there to use GameFound. So they weren't an option for us.
Interesting.
Yeah. But now, since our campaign, they have now opened it up, I've heard, to basically anybody that wants to do it. I think they were using established companies as kind of like a smoke test. Let's go through this. Let's see how it works. Let's make sure there's no issues with these established companies. And now they're willing to take, anybody. And, there are advantages and disadvantages to both. Kickstarter has more awareness. People are more aware of what's going on in Kickstarter than they are in GameFound. But GameFound does not have a fee, so they are cheaper. So if you could get the same traffic that you get on Kickstarter, obviously GameFound is superior. But that's the question: are you going to get the same traffic that you get on Kickstarter? That's what's still kind of being determined.
Right, which is a thing that I've heard quite a bit about, is that a lot of creators can advertise and reach out via Kickstarter easier than via the GameFound platform. And then there's just so much traffic. I think that's what you're alluding to. There's so much more traffic on Kickstarter right now, just people just kind of go and just kind of cruise, have it on their phone. There's an app that's on the phone that GameFound does not have, that people just scroll. So, okay. Now, I did not know that GameFound doesn't collect a fee.
No, they don't have a fee. At least they don't as of right now. Now that things could change, obviously, but that is the main reason people were wanting to use them, is because they had no fee versus Kickstarter's 5%.
makes a big difference, especially on a very large campaign.
For sure.
Oh yeah.
Not even sure what they offer you is even worth 5%. They don't even moderate comments on Kickstarter.
Right. Well, I mean, before there wasn't a choice. I mean, you paid the 5% because there were no alternatives. You know, I mean, you could go to some place like Indiegogo or whatever, but again, there's like no traffic there. You're not going to get any awareness.
Yeah.
Whereas with the people I used to do this all the time. Before I was a creator, I used to go to Kickstarter every day and just scroll through what's new, what haven't I seen yet? You know, and I would just look through all the new board game stuff. And I saw a ton of projects that I never saw an ad for. I just saw it on Kickstarter.
Oh, makes a lot of sense. And I used to do that as well until I realized how large my backlog had become.
Yeah, mine too.
And that's been a lot less. It's more like I scroll and I'm like, what looks amazing? That looks amazing. Not enough backers. Sorry.
Right. Yep. That's it. That's
going. I'll come back to you later. Saved.
Yep.
So if you were to create a second project in the future here, are we leaning more towards GameFound then, or?
Well, that's definitely something I would love to be able to use GameFound, because again, I'd love to not have to pay that 5% fee. But what I would do is I would reach out to a lot of the people that I talk to, other creators, and I would say, how do you feel the traffic differences? Do you feel GameFound hurt you in any way? And most creators are actually really helpful with that information when you reach out to them and talk to them, and they'll talk to other creators, pretty easily. I mean, I've had a lot of great conversations with a lot of different people, but I would just reach out. I would find out, do a little research, find out, is it worth it? Or that 5%, are you making enough off that 5% to counterbalance the traffic? That's what I would look into. So I don't know yet.
Cool.
All right, so I think we should touch what was probably the biggest difference from when we did our video to when we're now on the late pledge, as well as the end of the Kickstarter campaign. And actually, there was another question that sort of ties into that as well, because you did the early bird at the start, and then it was originally monetary stretch goals switched to daily unlocks. I'd love to hear more about the thought process behind having the early bird and then that change in terms of the stretch goals as well.
Okay. So early birds, full disclosure, I don't like them as a backer. If I go into a campaign and I see that I missed an early bird, it bugs me. I don't care if it's $10. It bugs me that I missed it. And it's like, it's like I almost don't want to back it because I missed it. My preference would be to never use them. And I tend to never use them again. But again, through a lot of research and talking to people, for a first-time creator, it's, any project, it's absolutely important that you hit big numbers on day one, or you're just going to stall out. And they say that for a first-time creator, the best way to do that is an early bird. Other companies have different ways they can generate that traffic. Just their name brings people to their project. But when you don't have that, you have to have something that gets people to back you on day one. And unfortunately, the best way to do that, is the early bird, but I plan on never using them again.
That's actually very interesting. I wouldn't have put that together, thinking of that's why, probably a lot of people have used the early birds. So it'll be interesting now seeing an early bird and checking to see if it's like a first time creator, like putting on there. That's interesting.
Well, it's really interesting that you say that, Steve, because I did a Kickstarter preview for a game called Hacktivity that's now on Kickstarter, and they're using early birds. And as one of the things I was wondering, I was like, why is he doing it? And you just explained it.
Yeah.
Yep. It is unfortunate. It's one of those unfortunate things, like, just something you need to do, even if you don't want to. But hopefully now, once we deliver this first project, we won't have to ever use those again. And then you had mentioned, you asked me about the monetary stretch goals versus switching to daily unlocks. So one mistake that I feel like I made in this campaign is I started off the stretch goals at too large of an interval. Being a first-time creator, I think being any creator is very difficult to judge, even, like Marvel Zombies, they kind of messed up the pacing of their stretch goals. The people were complaining about that, saying, "Oh, we're not getting enough stuff. You're making so much money, and we've hardly unlocked anything." So it's very difficult to accurately judge where those thresholds should be. You know how much everything costs, but at the same time, you only have so many stretch goals, and you've got to have them for the entirety of the campaign, or you're going to lose momentum. So trying to determine, do I do 10,000? Do I do 20,000? It's not as easy as, well, it costs this, therefore when I hit this much money is when I'm going to do it. That's why you think it would work, but it's not actually how it works. It's more about, I have this many stretch goals I want to unlock. How do I pace that across my entire campaign? So I kind of messed up in the early beginning of the campaign by having the stretch goals a little bit too far. The monetary amount was a little bit too large, and I think I slowed the momentum of the campaign by doing that. But what happened is in the middle of the campaign, you get that lull. The mid campaign lull, everybody hits it, and we were just kind of treading water for a few days. We'd gain some pledges, but we'd lose some pledges. And it was just kind of just hovering, and we weren't really gaining anything. And I'll tell you, from a creator standpoint, that for a first-time creator especially, it is extremely stressful, because you start to panic, like, are we going to stall out? Are we going to start to go backwards? Is our campaign going to crash and burn? And you've poured 3.5 years of work into this, and a ton of money of your own money, and you're just seeing, like, what's going to happen here? Are we going to crash and burn? So you start to kind of like, okay, so how do I turn this around? What do I do? And what made sense to us was to switch from the monetary to the daily unlocks, so that we could be showing that there's stuff that's coming out, and you are going to get this stuff. So don't panic, don't cancel your pledge. Stick with us. You got stuff coming. So it was just basically trying to stop us from stalling out and reverse that downward feeling, like we're going to crash and burn, and just kind of build that momentum again. And it did work.
Awesome. That's cool that you can adjust that, be like, this is not working, and, being able to switch over.
Yeah. And there's pros and cons to all of it. And, we just felt like it was the right thing to do to start the momentum going forward again.
I think it was really a good choice, because when we were having our conversation, just in terms of like what we were getting, looking at the value, looking in terms of what I believe was a little bit more of an offline conversation before we started recording was, and love to hear a little bit of your thoughts on this. And I'll refer to Anna Marie, because she was talking a little bit about it, was that, like, that value conversation that we try to have here is versus like retail versus Kickstarter. The extra that you're getting, you're paying the shipping. And whereas, in a world when you started in 2020, that shipping wasn't such a big deal. But nowadays, in some cases, you're looking at shipping, you're like, I can get a whole other game, or
right.
Do I? And there's no risk. Like, I can get a whole other game, there's no risk. With this,
yep.
There might be some risk. I mean, I don't think we got any risk here with you. We're talking to you, but that is something that people take into account now. And I think it's really changing the way crowdfunding works.
I agree. Yep. So I'm sorry. Anna Marie, you have a question based on?
No, I think it was just like, that's one of those things where when you're looking at the Kickstarters and the game founds, and you're trying to decide, like, okay, I've backed how many games in the last, short amount of time. Mm-hmm. And this game looks awesome and I want to get it, but what are the chances that it's going to go to retail? What are the chances it's going to go to a retailer near me where I can actually pick it up versus having to pick it up at a retailer and pay the shipping? Or is it one that I think might, it might not go to a retailer, and this is the way I'm going to get it. And so is it worth the shipping? Because like sometimes, like you said, Jason, that shipping is like $86 and you're like, oh, that's another game. And especially, when a game is, is already on. It's like games are not cheap anymore, right? Like, and it's just there's a lot of value that goes into them, right? There's a lot of elements. There's a lot that goes into them, and I think that's. But when you add on then shipping, where you have to try to balance that value with what you're like purchasing. And so it's that, do I buy it now or do I chance retail? And it's a tough, as a consumer, it's a tough pill to swallow sometimes. Like when what are you going to do? Right. What choice do you make with that one? It's just yeah.
And that's what I'm saying is that daily unlocks, you really put that value back into the campaign and you give that to your backers, which is something that not everyone does. And for a while there, we were really looking at a couple of Kickstarter campaigns, especially after yours. And the verdict kind of was like, oh, do I really want this? Do I really want this deluxe upgrade? And it was never that I was getting good value. It was like, everything here, if I'm buying it, I'm buying it, but I'm definitely paying for it. I think a good example of that was a game that I did back because I was been interested in the world for a while, was Title Blades 2, but that was a big conversation, was like the shipping, the cost, and is all this coming to retail?
Yep. Yeah, no, for sure. And I don't think our game is going to be coming to retail. I mean, we have no plans for that. That is beyond our scope. Maybe in the future or way down the road. But as for right now, there's just not in our ability to really break into that market. It's not easy. It takes a lot of work and know-how and contacts, and we just don't have that set up right now. We're just not comfortable trying to break into that market.
I can't even imagine as a first time creator there. It's just, there must be so much. Like every day something new, like, oh no, there's this now, and then there's this. Right. So much.
It is a lot. And like I think one of the things you were kind of wondering about is like people, how do creators feel about people backing on Kickstarter versus doing late pledges? What would they prefer? Because there is that 5% fee for Kickstarter. But one of the things to keep in mind for a lot of creators is they have a lot of deals they're working on with distributors that are based off of the success you get on your Kickstarter. And have you ever noticed, like, any campaigns you follow, how they come in after the Kickstarter or maybe a month or two down the road and they say, oh, we have a new publishing partner in such and such a country? That's because they worked out a deal based on the success of their Kickstarter and said, look, we did this much money. Our game is popular. It's going to be marketable. And they work out that deal. If you barely fund, no one's going to want to make that deal with you. They're just going to say, no, your game's too risky. It's too much of an investment. We're not going to get a return. And they're just going to walk away. So that is one of the reasons why a lot of these people want that money, even at the additional expense to them. They want that on Kickstarter so that they can use it as a negotiating tool with these distributors.
That makes a lot of sense. And then I know Ryan had a question that relates to one of his recent rants. So I'll let you ask that one, Ryan, because James Hudson kind of started this conversation.
Yeah, James Hudson, Title Blades, Skybound, Druid City Games. He had a little, I don't know if you follow him on his social medias, but he had his little observation about his upcoming project, Bloodstone. He was asking the community about miniatures versus like the upgraded standees type thing. And I'm actually just very curious, the cost, like how much does this project base cost go up because you chose to use miniatures?
Well, when it comes to the actual like per figure production, probably not that much, but the mold cost is obviously massive for miniatures. I don't know what the setup costs are for standees because we did not price them, but I know the cost of molds are very high. But for us, it was never a consideration because I love miniatures. I love miniature games. I always envisioned it this way. I never pictured it with standees. Now, as far as having that as an option goes, Certain companies can do that. Like I know, they did that with the Title Blades too. But for smaller companies like us that are going to have a smaller print run, it's very expensive to do a small number of orders that are specialty. Having like just a standee option, and we only have we make it like 100 or something. Those that would be so expensive to manufacture just 100 of those. It would be not worth the setup cost. We wouldn't make money on that. We'd probably lose money on that. So it's very, very expensive to do small print runs of stuff like that. But when you're doing a huge Kickstarter like Title Blades 2, you can do that because you're going to have enough orders to justify the setup costs.
I think the question also was because they're taking Bloodstone back to market, and the question was, does he go with miniatures like the original prototypes or the new acrylic standees because of the art? So it's one of those things that we're starting to see happen more and more is miniatures versus acrylic standees. Now I've got a few. They have their advantages. They have their disadvantages as well. And I got to say, sometimes I prefer the standees to the miniatures, but it hasn't happened in a consistent basis enough yet. But looking at Hour of Need and some of Blacklist miniatures, like they're good. The heroes look good, but some of the other stuff is a little bit more okay. I'm wondering, that look better if you had the art on the table.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the attraction for some people. I don't think that I would like them very much. Just the fact that, if they're turned sideways or something, you don't even know what you're looking at. You're just looking at a two-dimensional thing, and you're like, I don't know what that is. I got to turn it sideways to look at it. As opposed to a miniature, it doesn't matter which angle you're looking at it. You know exactly what it is. But I can see some people that, especially if you want color as opposed, and you're not a painter, I could see the attraction there. I think I'll always prefer miniatures just because. I mean, I grew up playing 40K, so I love miniatures. But I can see why some people would definitely want standees.
Yeah, and I only just bring up the thing because he's not doing a blend anymore and everything like that. I don't know if it would be in the possibility or in your mind going forward, knowing now what the costs of producing miniatures are, if you would now actually start seeking out those alternatives and just kind of think, price it out or something like that.
Well, it would just come down to what your vision of the game is. My vision of the game has always been miniatures, and I think that in my opinion, and I'm not, knocking anybody's preference for standees, but in my opinion, going to standees would be, it would be downsizing the game. It would be making the game lesser. And I would be less happy with it with standees. So it's just not something I would ever want to do.
Cool. Right on.
It definitely makes a lot of sense. The games that I like right now that have the acrylic standees, I did enjoy Uprising, Curse of the Last Emperor. I like the way they did their acrylic standees. I've got some from Japanime Games, like Tokyo Psychic, that has that anime art that just kind of pops with that color. Mm-hmm. And so I'm looking at that style of game. I'm kind of like, I don't know if I'd want miniatures versus acrylic standees because it just fits the theme in the world. So I think they both definitely do have their place.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if you do something that's maybe not as realistic, but knowing your FASA background now, I can't see it. But maybe one day if you're doing a game that's more colorful, we'll see acrylic standees, and I'll be texting you what?
Yeah. I mean, again, it's all on your vision of the game. I'm sure, Uprising and stuff, they always envisioned it with standees, and the game was designed with that in mind, and it fits what they are doing. But I think that if you basically would be compromising for cost savings in order to go to, just go with what you envision the game as and don't compromise. It's always the position I took. Don't compromise, make the game that it should be and stick with it.
Yeah.
That's
this
awesome.
This is your game. This is your vision.
So
I love that.
I've got another question because we all took a look at the game Hegemonia. I don't know how many of us kept our pledges. I know some of us were talking about swapping them to something else. But one of the things that we all did is we all love our miniature games. None of us backed the miniature pack because they were awful. How do you feel about bad miniatures?
Yeah, that's an immediate turnoff, and I'm not. I wouldn't buy a game with bad miniatures. It would, yeah, not for me. And sometimes you back a game that has really good sculpts and you get bad miniatures, and that is a shame. And I don't want to name any names, but I do have some games that I've purchased that they showed up and the miniatures were just not great quality. They weren't. You could tell they used cheaper plastic or whatever they did to save costs, and it showed.
I was curious because when we looked at Agamonia, it's like the heroes, beautiful miniatures, the enemies, no definition miniatures. We're looking at the standee art. We're like, I don't think I need this $50 box of miniatures.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
yep.
Very, very interesting. All right. So let's take a look a little bit at the late pledge options, because we're always talking about like the excess and value. So I'd love to see if there has anything changed on the late pledge page since the Kickstarter.
Nope. Price is still the same.
Okay, perfect. I love that. I absolutely cannot stand when I like back $1 or something for XYZ reason. I'm just trying to like figure some stuff out and get in later, and then the price goes up. One game that has me shaking my fist because I was interested was the Bad Karmas, the Tabor, which goes up by a significant amount if you didn't back it on Kickstarter.
Yeah, I don't know why they do that either. I mean, I'm a notorious $1 backer. I back tons of stuff at $1, and then I usually up it in the late pledges. But yeah, I would definitely be a turnoff for me if I went into the late pledge and it was more money. I'd be like, why? I locked myself in under, purposefully to get into your pledge manager, and now you're going to charge me more. So I probably would back out.
Yeah, that's irritating. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your favorite pledge here? Like, if someone is looking to back the game, what do you think is like the core Earth Under Siege Flashpoint experience? What do we need to go in on here?
The invasion pledge is really what I would definitely recommend. The invasion pledge is going to get you the core box and the World Killer expansion plus all the stretch goals. You're going to get all the stretch goals. The only thing you're not going to get is all the cosmetic add-ons. One thing that I try to do in this campaign to try to be a little bit different is I wanted, if you get the expansion, you basically have all of the gameplay. You have all the gameplay for one price point, and there's not a ton of expansion add-ons like, there's another box of enemies, another box of heroes, and just tons and tons of stuff you got to buy. Next thing you know, you got to spend $300 just to get the gameplay. Not to mention the cosmetic stuff. And I wanted to do that different. I wanted to say, look, you back this at $170, you've got all the gameplay, all of it. You've got all the missions, all the figures, everything, all the cards, and just have the add-ons just be cosmetic, so they're totally optional. Only if you want to bling out your game are these necessary in any way. Now, obviously, I love all the add-on stuff. I think it's going to be awesome, but I wanted, $170, you got it all.
I like that. I like that all the gameplay is in there. I do find that frustrating because it's, to me, when that happens a lot, I feel like it's just like trying to get you to spend more.
That's exactly right.
And it's just frustrating because you're like, oh, well, I want to have that extra gameplay, or I want to have, it looks like this guy is coming with this, but I'm going to have to spend another $50 to get it. And then there's another $50 expansion. Whereas I love that idea. We're just having everything, all the gameplay in this pledge, and then, make it pretty afterwards.
Right. And you know what? And maybe, these other companies that do tons and tons of expansion add-ons for gameplay, maybe dollar for dollar, that's the way to do it. That's how you make your money. But I wanted to make a campaign that, like, as a backer, somebody who's backed over 200 campaigns, what would I want? This is what I would want. I want all the gameplay. Don't nickel and dime me to death. Make all the optional add-on stuff be truly optional. Like it's just cosmetic. There's no gameplay there, and that's what I want as a backer. So I just wanted to make that, because I wanted to give that to other people. And it's kind of funny though, because some people question some of the decisions, and it's like, I thought you would appreciate what I'm doing here. But some people are like, well, why are these token figures an add-on? Why aren't they a stretch goal? I'm like, well, I mean, I could do that, but would you rather I have this enemy pack be an add-on for $25 then? I mean, it's like I'm giving you all the gameplay for one price point. No, I'm not going to stretch that all out and nickel dime you to death.
And I really appreciate this. This is one thing we don't usually see a lot on is you have all these great cosmetic upgrades and everything. And if somebody does want to get all of them, you have the bundle to save them a little bit of money. We don't see that very often.
No.
Yep. Again, I was trying to make the campaign what I would want if I was going in, what I would want to buy.
And I think you've done a great job. Also, I love the fact that we are getting all the add-ons, a nice box, a work in progress. And that's one of the things that I know we were talking a little bit before we started recording was just how much, like, when you get a lot of this stuff, storage, like you were talking about Massive Darkness 2, and I still haven't figured out how to store it all. I think I'm buying a plastic bin and I'm just going to start chucking the boxes because that's about... That's what's where I'm at right now because nothing else seems to make any sense. And I was just wondering about this. You've got an add-on box, you've got the World Killer expansion, you've got the core box. How small can you really get this if you wanted to? Can you get this all in one box or no?
It will all depend on how you are going to store it. Like some people absolutely won't ditch inserts. Say I'm the kind of gamer that I'll ditch an insert and I'll baggy up the miniatures. I'm not going to paint them, so I'll baggy everything up. That doesn't bother me. So I can condense stuff down pretty good. So, but if you're not going to throw out any inserts, then you're going to not have a whole lot of extra space because obviously when the manufacturer designs the boxes, they're not designing it with a bunch of extra space in it. I mean, they're designing it to hold exactly what it's supposed to hold. And then once you punch out the tokens and all that stuff, you've got a little bit of extra space, but not a lot. They're not going to make a box that's got this whole big hole in it for you to put extra stuff in that doesn't come in the core box. It doesn't make any sense. So again, it will depend on how you want to store it. If you aren't going to throw out the inserts and you buy everything, you're going to have to use the core box, the World Killer box, and the add-on box for all the add-ons. And it's going to be in 3 boxes. If you're willing to toss out the inserts, well, I don't know yet because I don't actually have the physical copies of everything yet. But I think that you could probably get it down to just the core box and the add-on box.
That's cool. You and I like to store games similar. I'm the same way as you. I don't paint them. I chuck the inserts, and I can see Hour of Need over there on your shelf. Yep. I can tell you, I did manage to get all of that into one box. The box sticks up a little bit just because of the fact that there's like a couple extra rule books, but it's all in one box. I was looking at it, I'm like, do I want to? And I'm like, having the box stick up like that much versus a whole extra box. I'm like, I don't got the room for that anymore.
Yeah. I haven't condensed mine down yet, but I've all open as the core box. But that's good to know that you can get it down that far. That's excellent.
Yeah, you can definitely do it. I'm happy to hear that with this one, you can probably get it into 2 boxes because I'm getting very frustrated with some games, and I think one of them you can see behind me, and I have to dive in there. Beautiful game, Tainted Grail, but like, man, I have too many Tainted Grail boxes.
Mm-hmm.
I got a small stack right beside me.
Yeah. Well, if you see, I mean, got my Massive Darkness. All this right here is all Massive Darkness plus that shelf down there, that zombie side box, all that. That's all Massive Darkness. That's as far as I could get it all down for both Massive Darkness 1 and 2. It's all that. I couldn't get it any more without really just smashing it together.
Storage. Did you think at all about offering a deluxe storage box, like put everything in a single box? And I'm not that was something I'd expect from a first-time creator, but because you've got the behind-the-scenes like information, I'd love to know like what that would cost. Like, you don't have to tell us like actual dollar values, but like in terms of like what you would also need to make it like actually cost-effective to make it.
Yeah, boxes are expensive. They're more expensive than you think. And especially when they're basically just empty. So one thing that we're trying to do, we don't know if it's going to work yet, but since everybody's getting the add-on boxes with a stretch goal, and everybody's getting the core box, we are going to try to put the core box inside the add-on box to ship it like that, so that we're not shipping 2 boxes. One of them is just full of air. We'll see if that works out. We're still working with the manufacturer on that, but we'll see if we can make that work. But as far as a deluxe add-on storage, I mean, I'd love to do something like that, but it would have been expensive. It would have definitely had to have been a purchasable add-on. That add-on box that we did put in the stretch goal was pretty expensive. Not gonna lie, but maybe sometime down the road we could do like a big deluxe thing. You ever play Deep Madness?
Yes, I played Deep Madness.
So they did a big deluxe storage for their game, and it is huge. I got that sitting over here. It's huge. But that ended up being 2 boxes too, because you can only fit so much in even a giant box. Yeah, I think maybe like one big Deep Madness style box would be really, really cool to do someday, possibly in the next campaign.
So how many backers for like that at a purchasable level would you have needed to say make that an option in this campaign?
Deluxe storage?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, it would have had to have been an additional add-on.
No, I mean, like how many people? Like, just an idea. Like, if you want to just you've got the numbers in your head roughly. I'm just curious. Is it like 100 backers, or would you need like 1,000 backers to make something like that even producible?
Well, I mean, if we do it as a purchasable thing, I mean, when it comes to something like a box like that, I mean, we could do it for 100 people. It wouldn't be very cost effective, but we could do something like that. But it's really hard to say, because I would have to go back to the manufacturer to see how big it would be to hold it all. I mean, because it did come up a bit in my communications with my rep when we were discussing the add-on box. She did mention that, you know, a box to hold it all would be too big. Now, I think we probably could have worked something out, because like I said, the Deep Madness box is massive. We could have worked something out, but she was saying that basically it would be too big. So I don't know exactly what it would cost, but I imagine it would be pretty expensive.
No, but it's interesting to hear that it's an option for like 100 backers, because now, Ryan, if you want to do your rant about storage and you want to cite on, I mean, you got a good thing. Like, if 100 people bought a deluxe box, we could all have Massive Darkness 2 in one nice box, which would really make my life easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and he's mentioning too, like to make it cost effective and whatnot and everything, because at the end of the day, he's got to make some money to put in his pocket and pay and feed his family and everything. I don't know if you're comfortable with sharing something like that. Like what a percentage of, like, say, an invasion pledge, like how much is, so making sure that you're like paying your employees, paying yourself, how much of that is actually going in there?
Well, see, that's a difficult thing to quantify, because you got the setup costs, right? The mold costs, and plus, you know, all the art that you've done, all that stuff, you know, all your sunk costs there that gets spread out across all of your pledges. So the more pledges you have, the more that gets spread out. So it's difficult to quantify how much you gain from each pledge, because it's going to depend on how many you get in total, right? Now, if you just want to talk about, if you want to take all those costs out of it, you know, just say, okay, to manufacture it, you know, what is it, you know, what are we gaining? You know, we could talk those kind of numbers, because those are more easy to quantify. But when it comes to, like I said, the setup costs and the sunk costs, it's spread out over everything. So it changes the more backers you get. So, I mean, I'm not trying to be evasive about it, but it's a difficult thing to quantify. You know, I will say that, you know, the cost to manufacture this game is, I mean, it's very high. It's obviously way more than $40,000. There's no way you're making a game like this for $40,000. It'd be impossible. The molds alone cost more than $40,000. So, yeah, it's very, very expensive. We're not making a killing on this. We're not making some big profit. We're not all sitting back and, it's just, blowing money like crazy. We're not doing that. We have enough to compensate ourselves somewhat, but we don't have enough left over to both compensate ourselves for all the work we've done and pay ourselves back for all the art and sculpt money that we sunk into this before it ever began. We aren't coming out that much ahead. Let's put it that way. So the idea here is that we're building our name, and we're going to deliver this game, hopefully in a decent time frame, and hopefully people really like it. And then we can then move forward with another campaign where hopefully we will do much better and we can pay ourselves a little bit more. But right now, there's not that much profit in it for us.
I think you've got a good example of a game like that actually on your shelf. I think it was a little bit more successful. I don't remember the numbers, but you've got the Chronicles of Drunagor behind you. Yeah. And I went the other way on the original campaign. And then when I saw Drunagor deliver in a timely fashion, I'm like, man, I went with Oathsworn. And part of me was almost just like head desk. Like, why did I not do Drunagor? I would have it and I'd be playing it. And Oathsworn still, I think it's finally on the boat, but we're not quite there yet.
Yeah. So real quick, just about that Chronicles of Drunagor, I just got that. I actually did not back that game.
Okay.
I was part of King of Average's fundraiser. He does a fundraiser every year. Mm-hmm. I donated money like I do, and it wasn't, but he gives away prizes, and I won that. I won the awesome. Chronicles of Drunagor, and I just got it in this weekend. So awesome. Pretty wild. I wasn't expecting to win anything, so it's pretty cool to win something huge like that.
Oh, that's great.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've covered a lot of the main questions. I had one other question, then I'll open it up to Ryan and Anna Marie, just to make sure that we get everything covered. But so you've done this, you're on the late pledge now. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you found out about marketing a Kickstarter crowdfunding campaign that you did that you really shouldn't have done, or some stuff that you wish you'd had done now in retrospect?
Well, we did our research pretty well about where would be good places to put our marketing dollars. Obviously, Facebook was the main thing to sink it into there. We used Jellup for a while there, and they also did Google ads. It was pretty wild to go onto YouTube and pull up somebody's video and see our video for the Kickstarter come up. I was just like, it was just surreal to see that. But we didn't really sink our money into anything that I felt was a waste of money, because I kind of knew where to put it. The big variable that I did not put any money in was on BGG. And that's because there's a very specific, mostly Euro gamers go to BGG. There are people that like miniature games stuff that go there, but they're a smaller percentage of the overall audience. And we were very unsure if doing an ad on BGG was going to be really worth it, if it was going to get us a good return. So we did steer clear of that. And I do wonder if maybe I should have, if it would have helped. But, I talked to a lot of people, and they kind of agreed with me that that is not the primary place to market a game like ours, because it's just not the primary audience that go there.
And it makes sense too. If you take a look at the BGG top 100 games, these style of games, there's not that many, less than 10% of that top 100.
Exactly.
It's a very cool observation.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I might have, just thinking about stuff that draws your attention to Board Game Geek and might have worked, and I found out about some cool games there, is sometimes the giveaways that they have. And you look at the Kickstarter pledges that you can win. And that might have been something that could have been done with BGG that I think would have maybe a lot less of a cost than running the ads.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I thought hard on the BGG contest, because I think a lot of people go there and just look, well, what's the current contest? A lot of people will enter on those just for the chance to win. Why not? So I did think about that. But ultimately, we only had so much money, and we felt that putting the marketing, towards the Facebook ads and just the live marketing and really hitting it hard with the Google ads and everything that Jalop was doing seemed to be just the most effective use of the money. And to be honest, I don't know how much you know about all that marketing stuff, but there's what they call the ROAS, which is your return on ad spend. And it's a very specific formula, and it comes up with a very specific number. And ours was 2.5. We wanted a 2.5 return on every dollar we spend with advertising. And Jalop, man, I mean, they like marksmen. They hit that number exactly, 2.5. I mean, it was impressive. So yeah, they know what they're doing.
Excellent. No, my wife works in marketing, so she does know a lot about that stuff more than me. But when it comes to the cost of the games and things like that, she typically lets me handle it, except if it's something that it's an IP that she loves, and then there's lots of upgrades. She tells me to buy the upgrades, but don't let her see the bill.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That tends to be what happens. Like Marvel Champions, it's like, did you get all of it? Yes. Is there a playmat? Yes. Okay, get it.
Yep.
Excellent. So we always, at the end of all of this, we always try to, we decide if we're going to back the game or not. So I think we can change this up just a little bit. Since we do have Steve here right now. So Steve, why don't you give us your best elevator pitch is why the three of us here, I mean, I believe all of us are $1 backers on this. We all were looking at upgrading our pledge. That's why you're here. Like, sell us on the game right now, the elevator pitch. Like, will you get the pledge fingers to back this game live?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I was saying, for $1, for $170, you get all of the gameplay. And I mean, show me another big box miniature game where you get all the gameplay for $170. I mean, any other game you're going to be spending $300, $400 to get all the gameplay. And I think that for $170, I mean, it's a great deal. You're getting a ton of content and a ton of gameplay. And I think you should definitely check out all the videos and everything if you are on the fence about that. But at $170, it's hard to beat.
Awesome. So Anna Marie, after this conversation and the fact that, well, actually, you're the more reserved one. Rob would be the one that probably be like backing it up. What's your take on this? Are you going to be backing Earth Under Siege Flashpoint?
Is Rob sitting in the corner over there listening in?
Yep. He is. He really wishes he could have been here. He's really upset that he had to miss it, but he's listening. I will
to, like, pop on the screen right now and be like, he's like shaking his finger.
He's just gonna have to go with my decision. That's just, but before I do, I have one super quick question that's kind of back to the beginning. Sure. What made England the hub? I was curious about that, like where it kind of takes place.
Okay, well, I just chose Europe because I didn't want it to take place in America. I mean, I feel like, we Americans tend to make everything all about America. So I wanted to make it about someplace else and cool. Just involve other people and just have a different setting. That's really all it came down to.
No, that was neat. I was just super curious about that setting. I thought it was different. So that's interesting. Okay. Nope. I am 100% in on this. Like, no debate. I think that I think it's just awesome. I think the way that stealth goes, kind of right back to my questions at the beginning. I think it's those are the first two things that originally drew me into the game, was that the escalation track and the way that every dungeon crawl I've played, if you're in line of sight, it just comes down to range. So I really liked that. And I thought it looked fantastic then. And I think it was just, it came down to how many games have I backed recently and can I do it? But I'm definitely pulling my trigger finger on this one.
All right, Ryan,
Why do I always have to follow up Adam Reed? He always steals lots of the things that I
Sorry, Ryan.
say and everything like that. We're going to change it up in the next video.
Okay.
I believe from my original comments, I have not watched, I might be eating crow on this or whatnot or anything like that. I think I went in on $1 because I was anti-Kickstarter, blah, blah, blah. I loved that Steve made a really good argument of why not to do the $1, actually give the money up front and everything. That's going to be something in the back of my mind from now on and everything. But I did say in the original video, I hope I said it, that the invasion pledge did have great value. And that is definitely the level that I will be going in at. And I will kind of take a look at a couple of these. I am a good sucker for plastic tokens. So I am a sucker for those. So yeah.
You're also a sucker for bling like me.
Well,
how much did we spend on that Awakened Realms game? ISS Vanguard?
I think my wife is sleeping right now. It's not too much. Well, she's going to watch this video afterwards. Oh, crap.
I mean, not enough, right?
Not enough. But these game tray campaign trays do look actually pretty cool too.
That is my personal one that I'm most looking forward to actually holding in my hand, because the renders of them are just fantastic. I mean, I love game trays in general, and have all the play testing we've done with all the campaigns we've played. We just baggy up our stuff, because we don't have any campaign trays yet. So I cannot wait to have those.
Right now, what we do is we've got a game table, and I've got stuff that's scattered all over on the inside, and hopefully I keep meaning to open this table up to actually get what's in there played, but never seem to find the time. So for myself, I get a chance to talk to you, and I just want to be clear, like the one biggest concern that we all had in the original video, for those of you that did not watch it and just watching this, was the stretch goals actually being unlocked. The Switch daily unlock, seeing what you're going to be getting in the invasion pledge, does have a ton of value. And that was really our conclusion, was like, depending on what you're going to get, the invasion pledge is absolutely something that's worthwhile. So I'm like Ryan, I'm looking at that invasion pledge, but I do love the upgrades. I'm a total sucker for that stuff. I love a good table present that tends to keep something on the table. Unless the game takes 3 hours, then it gets kicked off the table because I just don't have the time for it right now. 80%, please, part 2, make it shorter. I love the game, but 3 hours over a scenario is too long. So I'll be looking at the invasion pledge and then going up to the extinction pledge. So I know we all are very busy. There's all sorts of crazy things going on right now. Steve, how long does everyone have to actually back this game in late pledge?
So what we're looking at right now is to wait till after Gen Con. So I will be at Gen Con. I won't have a booth, but I will be there personally, and I'm going to try to generate some awareness, run some demos in the open gaming area, hand out some flyer and some postcards and stuff. Just try to generate some more awareness of the late pledges. So I would say till middle of August is probably when it'll be open.
Send them to this video.
Yeah, for sure. No, for sure. We're definitely going to share this around.
Definitely. So no, that's great, because a couple of things showed up that were like, oh, I need to pay for. So if I can wait till August, or at least till like end of July, that's definitely going to make the wallet a little bit happier. But love sci-fi, love dungeon crawls. Love the fact that you do have all the miniatures. I have a sci-fi dungeon crawl that I really want to play behind me. Haven't got a chance to play it. It's called Infinity Defiance. And one of the things that you're talking about, and I really like the fact that you did not do it. There are so many faction packs, so many things, but that the only way you're getting any value of was as an Infinity player, because it's like, hey, upgrade all these tokens to actual miniatures. But the only way you can really use these miniatures for their full value, because guess what? It's full price is in Defiance. I was like, well, this is not fun.
Yeah, very expensive.
I'll take my token instead of this Peter Mini.
and Jason, don't forget to do the pledge manager, like I was mentioning in a previous chat.
Yes. So actually, this is actually an interesting question now that we can ask, like completely like not related to the game. Currently, your pledge manager is on Backer Kit. So how do you feel about like pledge manager spam? Because I actually missed a pledge manager because I opened it up, I went to close it out, but I went when I got the link from the company because I turned off the notifications because they kept sending me stuff about other stuff that I don't care about. Now, Backup Kit's been pretty good, so
I agree with you on that. I think that sometimes those get sent out way too often. Some of them I fully intend to eventually, up my pledge or whatever. I just haven't got around to it. And it's like, I don't need to be reminded every 3 days, that I haven't filled this out yet. So I think that I prefer it when it's a little more spaced out. Give us at least a good, week to 2 weeks in between emails. You know what I'm saying? If Pledge Manager is going to be open a long time, but yeah, I agree. The spam is annoying.
I also, for the one that I turned off I was getting that spam and I was getting spam about just new projects. And I was like, please, I don't need this much spam. I don't need every couple of days, pay every couple of days, buy something else.
Yep.
Part of me, when I'm getting that much mail, I'm like, sorry guys, you're not Walmart, you're not Best Buy. I can't just get this thing. I kind of want to keep the money where it is for a little while.
Yep. Totally on board with that.
All right. So on that note, I think we've covered everything. Unless there's something that we need to showcase here, Ryan, our pledge manager, on this late pledge page. Did we cover everything?
Yep. I'm pretty sure we covered everything.
All right. Why don't you just pop up that extinction pledge, the big bad one, just so that
big one that kind of gets you a little bit of all of the.
Oh, it's everything, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, it's the all-in pledge. Yep.
Yeah. So you got all of the goodies. So if you want to bling out your game, that's the way to go. And that's kind of what I'm wondering if we're going to do, but maybe I'll be a little bit more restrained like I've been in more recent years, but just 1 year. Let's not lie. As we all joke, this is our Kickstarter therapy session where we try to convince ourselves to not spend as much money as we've.
It hasn't been working as of late. We've been convincing each other to spend a lot of money.
I know we got restrained in November and then it's been kind of off the chain again.
Well, that's because we were saving for the Christmas season.
Hard.
Yes. All right. So you can close it up. And on that note, we'll let everyone tell you where you can find them. So we will let our special guest, Steve, let you know where to find Dark Horizon Games and just himself online.
Yeah, we have a Facebook page for Dark Horizon Games. We have a Facebook group for Earth Under Siege Flashpoint, and we post a lot of stuff there. And there is some activity, so you should definitely join that. Other than that, you can sign up for our mailing list at earthundersiege.info. And of course, you can late pledge, and when you do that, you will be included in our updates that come moving forward for the Kickstarter.
Excellent. So Ryan, go next since you don't want to be after Anna Marie.
Perfect. Yes. Finally, I've been Ryan of Mr. Owl's Gaming Rants and Reviews. Please check me out on YouTube where, I don't know, I've been getting into a groove of a couple videos a week. So go check out my content that's going on there. Just been talking about the new Castles of Burgundy thing by Awaken Realms there. It's got me all juiced up and wanting to talk about.
Nice. And I'm Anna Marie, one half of the Meeple Dungeon. So you can find us on Twitter at Meeple Dungeon. I'm not good at this. And or our podcast, the Meeple Dungeon, on all the major podcasting sites. And we had one just a week ago, and it was our top 10 games that we played, during lockdown, that we played at 2 players, but that weren't 2-player games. So there's just we were the only ones we could play with. So we just played them at 2-player and kind of which ones we liked the best. But yeah, so that's us.
Excellent. And then I'd like to remind everyone to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that YouTube will let you know when our next video is released. And then down below in the video description, you'll find links to all of our social media feeds, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So if you'd like to see some pictures of this game when it finally arrives on my table, also make sure that you check out all of the Great stuff by the Meeple Dungeon, Mr. Raw. You'll see plenty of pictures of Earth Under Siege when they get it as well. So make sure you follow them. And then down there is also a link to multizone.ca, a great Canadian game store. Click that link. You'll get 10% off your next purchase. It's a great way to support the channel as a portion of that purchase is returned to us. And then on that note, we're going to have some videos popping up. So one will take you back to I was going to do the Kickstarter Access or Value playlist. Let's take you back to our original video on Earth Under Siege. After that, I'll take you to the playlist, and then you'll find all the great stuff we've been doing. And on that note, we're going to remind everyone to keep playing games.
Playing games.